Speaking your reality into existence. Rewrite the story, shatter the ceiling, say it your way. I stuttered as a child. Not a momentary stumble, not something sweet or quirky, but a full body, throat tightening, words trapped behind teeth that couldn't or wouldn't cooperate. People assumed I was slow, less intelligent, hard to teach, and even harder to reach. What they didn't see was that I was navigating the world through a different kind of wisdom. One that understood silence as a sacred thing, as a safety thing. One that taught me how to listen deeply, and one that would eventually give me a fierce reverence for the power of words. I spent years in and out of speech therapy. I got better, clearer, and then a tire swing, a direct hit in the mouth, knocking out my front teeth. No insurance, no fancy appliances, just another round of speech therapy, another chapter in the saga of trying to be understood. Then finally, years later, new teeth. But guess what? That meant learning to speak again. If anything, I now over-enunciate. Crisp consonants, deliberate vowels, a subconscious effort to make sure I am never misunderstood again. But here's what I really learned. Reframing my language and redefining my words had me obliterating every door, window, wall, and ceiling they built to contain me. Because those weren't just articulation challenges. They were identity challenges. I wasn't just the stuttering kid. I was the foster kid. 18 homes in 4 years, each one branding me with new assumptions. Troublemaker, unteachable, problem child. What they didn't see was the loneliness of packing my life into a garbage bag. The white-knuckled silence of trying to be small enough, quiet enough, good enough to be kept. I wasn't the problem. The problem was the story being told about me, and eventually, the one I almost believed. So I learned to speak myself into a new story, to reclaim my voice. Not just the sound of it, but the sovereignty of it. This is why I care so deeply about the words we use. Because I know what it's like to have your voice misunderstood, or worse, dismissed entirely. I know the difference between saying I can't and saying I'm finding a way. I know how it feels to say I should and then feel the invisible chains of someone else's expectations tighten. And I know how freeing it is to replace it with I choose to. I have spent my life turning limitations into liberation, and language has always been my sharpest tool. So much so that my coach, Jeffrey Shaw, recently pointed out to me something that I'd never fully owned. That my gift for helping others reframe their language is so instinctual, I do it without thinking. I interrupt mastermind calls with gentler, more liberating alternatives. I offer new words like offerings, no corrections, just invitations. The next evolution of this work? A gift, a guide, a rebel grammar guide for your rising. And yes, it'll be a free download. Stay tuned. Because when your words change, your world does too. I have lived this truth. The first time I recall speaking something into existence, it wasn't intentional. I didn't mean to. It was 3 months into my entrepreneurship, just after I bought my bookkeeping company. I casually said to someone, I can't wait to get my first real client. Not one I bought, but one I closed myself. The very next day, I got the call. They became my first self-sourced client, and I worked with them for more than 20 years. It's not a coincidence. It's a confirmation. When your language is rooted in desire, clarity, and audacity, the universe conspires in your favor. Words don't just describe our reality, they design it. And while that was the first time I consciously noticed my reality bending that quickly, I've always had a secret spell, a sentence that reclaims the rules and rearranges the energy. That is not the way things work in Shayna's world. It is a refusal. It is a boundary, a declaration of sovereignty, and it has always been my most potent magic. Because when we decide what's true in our world, what we're available for and what we're not available for, reality listens. And yes, your money does too. Every time you say, I could never change that. I'm not in it for the money. I just want to help people. Those are ceilings, stories, spells cast in someone else's voice. Language shapes your pricing, your profit, and your permission to receive. In Shayna's world, money speaks the language of joy, desire, and unapologetic agency. Anything less is a lie we no longer tell. Here's what it sounds like when your words rise to meet your truth. When you say I should, reframe it to I choose to. When you say I have to, think I get to. When you say or think I can't, think I can't yet. I need. It's important to me that. I want to. I'm going to. These aren't just tweaks, they're tectonic shifts. They tell your subconscious that you are in command, that your life is not a reaction but a revolution. Your reflection and expansion questions for today. Where have your words been borrowed from other people's expectations? What ceilings might you shatter just by saying it differently? What would change if your language was infused with more choice, more agency, and more joy? What stories about your voice, literal or metaphorical, are ready to be rewritten? Postscript. They thought my voice was broken, that my story would stay small. But I rewrote that narrative with grit, with grace, with gorgeously chosen words. I used to swallow my voice to keep the peace. Now I wield it to make war on every system that told me silence was safer. Profit is protest. Language is liberation. And every syllable you reclaim is a strike against the systems that tried to silence you. Speak your reality into existence again and again and again. Today's song of the day is called Main Parwana. It's from the movie Pippa. I cannot pronounce the artist's names. Click the link in Substack. Truly, it is uplifting, and I hope you allow it to let your feet move. Enjoy.